My name is Larry Luck. Noreen and I came to St. Stephen's Parish in 1981. Before that, we were at St. William's in Fridley, which has at one time warmly embraced the changes suggested by Vatican II. But as pastors changed and the community became more traditional, we toughed it out until our youngest daughter graduated from high school in 1988 and then went church shopping. Noreen and I both liked St. Joan of Arc, but then we tried the St. Stephen's Mass in the gym. The inclusion of all people, including Barbara Jean, who roamed all during Mass greeting people, convinced us this was the place to be. Those who've been around a while will remember the historic stripping of the altar at St. Stephen's Church and processing over I-35W to the CYC building to be greeted there by Flav. And here we are today as the Spirit of St. Stephen's. I've recently moved, and while cleaning out drawers, came upon this story, not aligned with today's readings, but worth considering. When we hear about the parables from Jesus, we often hear about the audience, but never about the disciples' reaction. Those who have been teachers will relate to this story about what might have happened. Then Jesus took his disciples up the mountain, and gathering them around him, taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the poor in heart. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Rejoice and be glad, for great is your reward in heaven." And then Simon Peter said, "Are we supposed to know this?" And Andrew said, "Do we have to write this down?" And James said, "Will we have a test on this?" Philip said, "I don't have any paper." Bartholomew said, "Do we have to turn this in?" And John said, "The other disciples didn't have to learn this." And Matthew said, "May I go to the men's room?" And Judas said, "What does it have to do with real life?" And then one of the Pharisees who was present asked to see Jesus' lesson plan and inquired of Jesus, "Where is your anticipatory set and your objectives in the cognitive domain?" And Jesus wept. A few phrases in the gospel stand out. He made mud with his saliva. I find this as an interesting connection between the mingling of the divine and the created earth. They were sharply divided over Jesus. It seems that nothing has changed. There are still deep divisions in Christianity and its denominations and interpretations. We perhaps spend more time arguing about them than paying attention to the message Jesus was trying to get across. They threw him out of the synagogue. In spirit, I think we have looked at the traditional church, chosen what is life-giving, and ignored what is not. I thought we would take a look at what Richard Rohr had to say about sin in this reading. He says, "Sin became a less useful idea for many of us because we needed to move around in a different field to regain our notion of the deadly nature of true evil. No one can deny that evil is very real, but what many of us now observe as the real evils destroying the world, such as militarism, greed, scapegoating of other groups, and abuses of powers, seem very different from what most people call sin, which is mostly referred to personal faults or guilt, or supposed private offenses against God. But we lost interest because we usually use the concept of sin being used to judge, exclude, or control others, or to shame or control ourselves, but seldom to bring discernment or deeper understanding, much less compassion or forgiveness, to the human situation. In Richard's view, the more sin-obsessed a religion or culture became, the more unloving and cognitively rigid its people tended to be. So what the message seems to be: those who appear to be the least or most surprising often do the best things. This community has always supported this. What would Jesus do? Would he be at protests against war, against injustice, against discrimination? Would he write letters calling for justice, make phone calls, speak out in groups? Many in this community do these things as we are called to do. Alleged religious leaders are not always correct. We need to follow rules that are reasonable and replace those that are not. We should not be affected by outward appearances, sight, hearing, mental ability, health, learning disabilities. So what do we conclude? Follow the rules when they are life-giving. Those who appear to be the least or most surprising often do the best things. This community has always supported this. Even though there are times when we seem blind, we can still see if we know what to look for. I think we can do this.